This is going to be a kind of story time video, so settle in, get yourself a cup of coffee and relax while we go through some of my lessons learned about flying abroad. So I just got back from San Francisco. I was out there for a conference called GDC, and it's the biggest game development conference in the world, I believe, probably. And it's really cool. Basically, there's loads of new tech that you get to see, loads of new games, lots of fun, lots of really good people, loads of industry friends. It's a good excuse to hang out with a bunch of friends. We went out there with a group of like 10 of us from where I work, and obviously meeting people out there that we already know, meeting new friends. It's great. It's a really good vibe, and San Francisco is a beautiful city. I've never been before, so it was my first time in the Bay Area, if you like, and I thought it was awesome. I really did. It was really beautiful. But obviously, while visiting a foreign country, I thought I might as well take a couple of quads with me so I could maybe get some flying in. I use this app called AirMap on my phone, and what this does is basically give you all of the sort of flight restrictions of the area that you're going. So it will tell you any advisories, anything like, oh, you need to be aware that you're near an airport, or if you're too close then you just can't fly. So there's cautions, there's advisories, and it tells you all the local laws. And in San Francisco, actually, it's pretty restricted because a lot of the area is considered a national park, because you have the Golden Gate Bridge, and that basically has loads of national parks around it, and national parks are completely illegal to fly over. So that's something you just can't do. So I did still see some areas that were in smaller parks in the city that looked like they would be great for flying, and they had no advisories whatsoever, so they were completely good in terms of legal. So I took Scrappy, which is my old faithful. He's the first drone I ever built, and I took a new one called Ghost, who is like very beautiful. Used these cinematic X-hover motors, first Popo motors as well, which is like the really quick release propellers that you don't need a screwdriver to tighten them. Took two quads, like my X-Lite, my big battery charger, because it's much easier and safer than using a balance board, especially because a lot of my batteries are quite old and some of the cells have very different resistance, so I don't really like using a balance board with them. And when it came to flying my drone, I realized that this little guy was still at home. So I left the GoPro at home, and one of the reasons I wanted to fly in this beautiful city was to get the footage, right? Because it's a gorgeous place, and it's somewhere that I would like these sort of visual memories of flying there. So that sucked. But then I remembered I was in America, so it's possible to buy stuff in America, and usually it's cheaper than it is in the UK. So I went to Best Buy, which is where, you know, all the 90% of electronics are sold in America. So I went to this huge Best Buy, these massive warehouses, right? It was in the middle of San Francisco as well, so it wasn't too far to go to get there. And I brought another GoPro Hero 7 Black for £265 equivalent, which is great because they're £379 in the UK. So I saved £100. So I was like, wow, probably should have brought more. But, you know, one was enough. It was all I needed. And yeah, so I was good to go. That's literally the second I walk out of the Best Buy. The second I walk out of the Best Buy, it's almost like I look up and it just started raining, like in a cartoon, right? Just like walked out. It's just been beautiful the day before. We had this amazing weather, and the city looked gorgeous. And then I looked up, and it just started chucking it down. I was like, oh, typical. So it rained for like a day straight, day and a half straight, which was kind of annoying. But I still had some GDC days left, some days left at the conference, so I just sort of hung around with friends there. And the weekend came. And the weekend brought with it some beautiful weather. So on Saturday, we went to Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, the conference was over now, so we were just doing tourist stuff now. So we went to see the Golden Gate Bridge. We're hanging around on the beach near there. And I thought now would be a good time to go to the Golden Gate Park. So I had all my batteries charged, had my GoPro with me, and me and a few friends went to walk around the Golden Gate Park. And there is some great areas within the park because it's this huge park. It's not part of the national park, which is the Golden Gate area. So it's in this nice little spot where there is no regulations to fly. And yeah, I found this lovely little area, really secluded. And that's the thing, because it's so big, there are so many like secluded spots that are really good for flying. So Ghost was ready to go. It's a beautiful machine. Armattan Rooster. As I say, the cinematic motors, it's all KISS, iFlight KISS FC, KISS 32 amp ESCs. Like my perfect build, basically. But these Johnny props as well, they are something special. I flew her once before in Northampton and was very confident with how well she was flying. No dropouts, no signal problems, just absolutely perfect. And yeah, I took off and must have got about 30 feet in the air and everything was fine. I was just cruising around the trees slowly. Then I wanted to pop out above the trees, as you do, get a nice view of the park and dive back in. And basically the moment that I popped over the trees, it must have been about 50 or 60 feet, I reckon. So I just popped up over the trees and you hear the dreaded signal critical. On the remote. And I have R9, so it's a long range system. So it's supposed to be able to go for 6 kilometers. And I'm 60 feet away. And signal critical on the remote. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll bring it back then. So I'll turn it around, and as I'm turning around, it just fail safes. And it drops straight into the middle of a lake. So I've been in the air for about 15-20 seconds, right, taking all this gear over to America, brought a GoPro, and now it's all sitting at the bottom of a lake in a park. So I tried to think what it might be. I've had similar problems like this before when the antenna is not connected to the receiver, but I was convinced everything was fine because she flew so well like a week prior to this trip. And then it occurred to me, I'm on a long range system, which is around the 900 megahertz part of the spectrum. It's not the 2.4 gigahertz, which is the kind of the standard short range stuff that we use when we're just flying around parks. So 2.4 is kind of a standard, that's fine. But 900 megahertz has two standards depending on whether you're in Europe or on FCC, which is in Americas. So they have 915 in America or 868 in Europe. So I think the reason it's like this is because that the LTE networks, like the phone for cellular data, use 868 in the States and 915 in Europe. So they've sort of switched them for this long range system. Problem was I hadn't switched it over, so I was on the same frequency as all of this mobile data or all of these digital signals flying around. And as soon as I popped up over the trees, the thing just went boop and just completely fail-safe. Not even stage 1, just straight to stage 2. No chance of getting it back. Flight controller just says nope, straight into the lake. So yeah, I think that's a huge lesson, really, is remember that there are different standards for the controlling in these different countries. I was thinking, that's a real shame. I literally brought the GoPro, so it'd been on for 25 seconds. That was kind of the biggest thing, because everything, like you expect to lose drone parts and stuff, but GoPros are waterproof, so if there was any way of getting it back, then I could at least salvage the GoPro maybe. And so we tried. This lake was pretty big, but we didn't know how deep it was. So there was a chance that it probably wasn't too deep. So we went to a sporting shop and bought a boat, because why not? The boat and a net came to a total of $40. So if it was $40 to save a 265 pound GoPro, then it kind of made sense to give it a shot, right? So it's me and my girlfriend. Everyone else was gone home. This was the next day. We brought a boat and we went back to the park. And we were sort of quietly confident that we were going to find this thing. and we blew the boat up and just felt really self-conscious about going onto this lake. Because now it was like, I don't know, there was more people around. It was the second nice day in a row, so the park had dried up, and there were a lot of people around now. So people were just sitting on the side of the lake while we were just blowing up this boat. And I don't think it's a normal place to like have an inflatable boat in the middle of this lake. It certainly wasn't anyone else doing it. So yeah, people were walking past and like looking on really weirdly while my missus is in the middle of the lake, like rowing away, like successfully rowing around, like really controlled, doing a really good job, and sweeping the net around under the water where we think that it landed. Yeah, it was a hilarious sight to see, to be honest, and everyone was laughing just thinking about how stupid it was going to look. And the reason that I didn't go in is because I am twice the weight of her, and this boat was just like a little inflatable boat for kids. I mean, on the picture on the front of the box, it had like 3 kids in it, and then the dad was like in the pool next to them. He wasn't in the boat, so I was like, wow, you probably weigh about 3 kids worth. I probably weigh a bit more, so there was no way we were going in it together, and it was just kind of safer to have her. It was much more controlled, you know. There's a lot less momentum. So yeah, well, we tried for like 2 hours just paddling around, and to no joy, I'm afraid. So Ghost is gone. She was beautiful. She didn't have long in the air, to be fair, and I'm going to be replacing her with a Marmot, I think, because that's like a new Armattan frame that's just come out. The frame actually was given to me by a friend who switched from Armattan to Hyperlows. He liked a different type of frame, so he didn't really have a need for it anymore. So he gave me the frame, so it was a donated frame. So sorry about that, Max. It's now in a lake. So what I'll do is I'll put a little thing on the screen now, actually, like a little Google pin to show exactly where the lake is, because if someone's got like a snorkel, they could probably go and get a closer look. The problem is the lake was really murky, so it was difficult for us to see down into the lake. It wasn't to be. So Ghost is gone, and it's the first quad I've lost, like properly lost, like a whole thing. Because you crash all the time, and you lose a motor or you lose an ESC. I seem to lose ESCs quite a lot, but you never lose everything all in one go. This really does sting, and especially when you lose it with a GoPro on it that's brand new that you brought yesterday and turned on once. And a whole 128 gigabyte empty card on there as well. But it was a lesson. These frequencies are like a slightly different between regions for a reason, obviously. So I did experiment with Scrappy, is my other quad. So I wasn't completely without any kind of ways of flying. So I took the other one out on a flat part of the park that was really open, so there wasn't any trees around, no mysterious lakes, and I just tried to fly it very quietly and very low, and it seemed fine. The range was fine, but as soon as I went above the tree, again, popped up above the trees, instant failsafe. So it was nothing to do with the quad build itself. It definitely seems like a height thing. I mean, in San Francisco, you got like the Saturo Tower, which is this huge megawatt transmitter thing, or thousands of kilowatt transmitter that transmits digital TV signals, and that could have been just blowing it out of the sky, to be honest, because I was really close to where I was. But it's odd that it just seemed like a height restriction. As soon as you hit 60 feet, zip, it just completely popped. Just freaked the whole thing out. It was a good trip overall. I had a good time. There's a bit of flight footage that I've probably just been showing over the top of this talking head. It was nothing crazy, because obviously when something like this happens, when you get a situation like this, your confidence is shot completely. So I was not at all confident flying Scrappy around, even though I wasn't in any risk of losing him. I didn't want him to go crashing into a tree or fail-safing in the top of a tree. That would just be great, wouldn't it? To lose one in underwater and one at the top of a tree and not be able to retrieve either. So I didn't really want that to happen, so I didn't do anything too crazy. Overall, I had a really good time in San Francisco. It is a beautiful city. Probably the nicest city I've seen in California. But yeah, I would go back. I plan to. But one thing I will do is install either Crossfire or Flex firmware on the R9, because that way you can then switch from 868 to 915 easily. Alternatively, you could actually put a 2.4 gig receiver in if you were going to travel, and use that in your sort of travel quad, and then that would probably be fine. Learned a lot this trip, had a good time, and yeah, I just wanted to pass on the story to you guys, and kind of like a cautionary tale really of traveling abroad. Check the advisories, obey the laws, don't forget your gear, and make sure that you're on the right frequency. That's my advice for flying abroad, but do it because it is cool as shit. Sync FPV, now the proud loser of one Armattan Rooster Kiss build with a GoPro Hero 7 Black, possibly the most expensive quad I owned, considering I had to import the motors. It burns, but it's all a learning experience, and at the end of the day, it's just stuff. Right, take care, and always fly legally.